Senator Scott.
Chief Butler, I know you're aware the LA Fire Department has been a political lightning rod over the past, few decades. It seems like it's always in the news over some hot button issue like race, gender, or vaccine mandates. Can you talk about the politicization of the department by city leaders, and has it caused any problems?
For me, everything's about operations. And the operations of the department, it's about doing your job, accountability, and all the pieces that make us good at our craft. And so external forces on the department, whether it be the political influence or whatnot, they do have an impact. Personally, for me, what I've always focused on myself is the value that you need to know your job first above all else, and that being good at your job is really what defines our success. In terms of the outside political discussions of the department, racism, discrimination, all those aspects, the department has had a long history of discrimination since the 50s. But what I've seen personally, too, is that it's a department that's pretty diverse and works hard together. For me, the piece of the department most important to me as a command officer is that we get the support to make sure the people that are in the right places are qualified and competent to do the job, and that their qualifications are rigorously scrutinized. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most. And that's my position on it.
Chief Crawford, early draft of the fire department's after-action report for the Palisades fire contained a frank discussion about the failure to pre-deploy assets and keep firefighters on duty. The final version, however, simply stated that preparations, quote, went above and beyond the standard LA Fire Department pre-deployment matrix, unquote. Do you agree with the early draft or the final version?
Neither. I agree with neither draft. The draft that was put forth that talked about the pre-deployment issues really just doesn't cut it. I do national media commentary, as I said before. In my first interview on the 8th of January, I said specifically that was the first misstep, was not withholding the off-going platoon and sending those folks home. That just does not, it's hard to get people back once you send them home and then have them return back. Secondly, another point to that is using what we call the limited recall, is it allows you to tell the third shift, be prepared to also be able to come in if we get something that's going to expand it beyond our normal scope. So when they decided to pre-deploy and say that in the final after-action review said it went above the matrix, it never showed what the matrix levels are to determine where that stopped. And so if you look at this from a perspective of this was supposed to be a historical, particularly dangerous situation wind event, and I would pretty much survey most of the department and ask them, have they ever heard of what we call a PDS? Probably most have not. Therefore, this cannot be what I said, business as usual. And that's how the department performed that day. And so you need to be going above and beyond even what you are normally, you always ask the question, are we doing enough? And then what's our next level of planning? So it just doesn't cut it to say that we went above and beyond the pre-deployment matrix. It should have been above, should have been something that was off the charts, and in conjunction and looks like what the other departments were around you were also doing and matched their level of pre-deployment.
Thank you. Yes.
If I could add to that, in the report I provided, I have some bar charts, but basically the department deployed less than half of what was normal and customary. And I just
might want to explain what happened. I mean, you went back and looked at history and then look at what they allocated for the Palisades fire, and it was different.
It was absolutely different. It was absolutely at a scale that I have never seen in my career. And the notion to go above and beyond, I mean, that I think for the community, it's a completely different narrative to see what they lost and then to hear someone they went above and beyond. But I think there was clear departure. There was absolutely clear departure from what deployments had been in the past. And I only picked some of the ones I did. But overall, it was a big departure. And not only that, but I use weather prediction on the prior events that I looked at, and none of them were close to the level of threat of the Palisades. And so I believe that, the report I have here will provide some context to that. It has documentation. But back to my central point is that this was decisions made before the wind arrived, decisions that were the downstream effects of not putting money into infrastructure and resiliency, budget issues. But when the disaster hit, funding at that point is not the issue. When the disaster hits, you fund it. They'll make me whole, a few months later in front of the council. And it's exactly what we're supposed to do. But I believe to talk about Chief Crawford, I kind of joke that sometimes your first draft is always the best draft, because by the time you get to your final draft, you've pretty much stripped it of stuff that you should have left in it to begin with. And so I did read the draft. I did speak to the individual who wrote the report. The individual who wrote the report has publicly come out and stated that it was highly unprofessional for the department to have done that to the after-action report. And I think the records show that it's not even speculation on my part. This is exactly what happened.
And neither of you are questioning the hard work of the firefighters. What you're questioning is the leadership that they were given and the resources they were given. But the firefighters on their own, they showed up when they were doing what they were asked to do.
The firefighters on the front line do like they always do. It doesn't matter what you give them. If you give them a buggy, car, whatever, they're going to make it happen. I know that's how it is. That's how it was when I was a young firefighter. I still consider myself one today. Firefighters, they had all the heroism on the front lines. They even lost their own homes. They exposed themselves to a lot of hazards and toxins that'll be long-term effects. I'm a cancer survivor, and the recent passage of Congress and the President of the United States, the HEROES Act, is going to be something that's going to benefit folks like me and families of firefighters out there. So the heroics of the firefighters, it's unbelievable the stuff they do.